I'm in Orangeville.
Okay,
Which, yeah.
So not that far.
No, are you familiar?
Yeah, so because we are, so you know where Barrie is?
Yep.
Because that's where most people know where the north part is, and so we are about 3.5 hours north of Barrie.
Okay.
Of Barrie.
Okay.
So we're about an hour and a half away from North Bay.
Wow. I might have to take a trip up there one day.
Very beautiful. Yeah, especially in the summertime. If you're a winter person, it's beautiful in the wintertime too, but the summer for sure is absolutely beautiful. We have lots of beautiful hiking trails and so hey everyone, it is Rolly, and you actually I had already hit going live as Michelle was actually talking about the layout of where we are compared to where she is in Ontario. So Michelle is in Southern Ontario and we are in Northeastern Ontario. And so that's the beginning of what it is that you guys caught. So you guys get to know where we both are. So this is pretty cool. Good morning, Francine. How are you? So Michelle is one of our exhibitors who is coming into, I guess, not technically coming up because video, because it's all virtual. But Michelle's actually going to be presenting her products and her services. Your services, I believe, right, Michelle?
Well, there's services / products. Yeah, because they're courses.
Well, but not products as in like physical products.
No, not yet. I have some, but they're just not quite ready. I have to do the descriptions and stuff. I'm so excited about them, and I'm sad that I'm not ready, but it's okay.
There's like still 2 more weeks, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You never know. I know that Emily is actually sharing her products because she also does services, and she also started selling candles, making some beautiful candles, and so she's been selling those, and so she's actually doing both her services and her products as well, so which is really awesome. Mm-hmm. So can you tell me a little bit more about, so it's Monarch Mentoring Academy, so do you want to tell me a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah. So the whole name, Monarch Mentoring, really dropped in. A great connection with spirit. So I was brainstorming with names at one point or another, and then I was driving one day and just boom, there it was, Monarch Mentoring Academy. The academy part comes because I've been a teacher for 20 years, or I was a teacher before I stopped being a classroom teacher. And so, excuse me, part of what I offer are courses, like e-courses. I've used my skills as a teacher to develop online courses for people to purchase and go through at their own pace. But the courses are really for women. They're about empowering women.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. My goal is to have both for women and children, but it's such a big task.
It is.
And because I'd worked with children for so much of my life, I've decided to shift my focus to women. I feel like if we are where it starts, right? If we're not our best selves, that's what our children are experiencing as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you're able to transfer those skills, right? So we have, and actually earlier on this week, we were actually talking about those whole transferable skills where we kind of shift from one over to the other. And I like how you actually said, I was a teacher. You still are a teacher, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a different way of presenting the information. And this whole weekend is about empowering women. And that's the whole idea of being able to bring everybody together and sharing our experiences. And I love it. It is something that is really near and dear to my heart, which is why when everything shifted, because this is typically an in-person event, and so we shifted it to being virtual. And so there's lots of behind the scene things that even when I said, okay, I'm going to do this, and I've been doing online stuff for a while, there's still a lot of little things that I didn't even think about, that it's like, oh, never thought about that. What about that?
This must be a huge undertaking. Wow.
So and that's one of the things that I've said before as well, is that this feels like my first event, right? So it's like, it's not my first event, it's not my first conference, but it just feels that way with all of the changes and the shifts that we've needed to make. So I know that Francine has been, I know that she's on right now, but she has been following all of our interviews and all of our little quick chats. And she and her daughter are the two lucky winners to our free tickets. So Francine gets to come. And so we're really excited about that. And we know she's definitely in, because she's been watching all of the things that have to do with the conference, even before she actually won the ticket. So this is amazing. So thanks.
That says a lot.
It is.
Yeah, that says a lot, because that's what you're putting in is what you're going to get out, right?
Yeah. And it really does make that difference. And I like how you said that. It's really what it is that we put in, that we get out. And I know that a lot of conferences now are more of the talking, right? So like, there's no interaction. There might be some chatting interaction, but that's not quite the same. And so one of the things with the conference was super important for me was to make sure that we put everything in a container that allowed us to be able to have that interactive flowing conversation, because that is where we, at least I believe that that's where we get like the really nice juicy nuggets. So like, yes, it's great for us to be able to have the replays. It's great for us to be able to have all those other parts, but that base of being able to have that interaction and meeting other women, that we actually get to say, hey, yeah, me too, right? So before we actually came on, we were talking about our kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, where we are, what's around us, our children, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So, and it's just that connection. And one of the things that I personally have found with COVID is that we're missing that personal connection, right? So being able to have it still virtually allows us to be able to have that piece, because there's lots of videos that we can watch. There's lots of things that we can read. There's lots of chatting that we can do, but that chatting conversation piece, I think, is like really important. And so like, same as with the new Clubhouse. I don't know if you've been on any of the calls with Clubhouse.
No, I've heard of it, but I haven't ventured in that direction.
So I've gone on. I haven't actually spoken in any one of them. So so I'm not sure how, because I'm still trying to figure out the app and how it works, because I'm not an iPhone person. Like, I'm not. So, but our system is has a tablet, like has the I don't even know what the iPad. So it has an iPad. So our system has the iPad, and that was just part of the process, like the package thing or whatever, when we got it. So otherwise I would have actually bought a Samsung tablet, because that's just what I use. And but the and so I've actually been able to kind of get on and hear some of the conversations. But I think that one of the pieces that is that why it's been so popular is because it gives that voice to voice. Like, so we don't see the people, but we hear that voice to voice conversation where people are actually interacting in terms of conversation. So I know there's like a raise hand thing, and I know, so I haven't figured out how to be able to actually start speaking in any of them, but I've been listening to the conversations, and it really is those conversations where we actually get to interact. And that's one of the things that I love with the breakout rooms that we're going to have, is that it allows us, but it also allows us to be able to see the facial connection as well. So we actually get to see people and hear people and have that conversation. So what is it that you're most excited about for the conference?
I'm excited about meeting like-minded people on either side, the speakers, the exhibitors, the participants, everybody, just women gathering to empower themselves, empower each other, learn from one another, connect with one another. It's just like a bubble of love that grows and grows and grows, right? And I feel like women are heading in that direction. I think we're becoming better at, or maybe it's just the circles that I run in, but the circles that I run in are all very supportive women who we lift each other up. And I'm sure there are others who don't do that still, but I think we're improving as a whole globally.
I think so too. And one of the things that I find is I see a lot more a lot more changes in terms of being able to be more accepting of others and their beliefs.
Yeah.
And whereas when, especially with the spirituality piece, right? So like, but again, the people that I hang out with and the people that I connect with, like you said, like I was driving along and it just came down on me. And that's how I came up with my name, right? And I know that when I first started having these conversations with people were like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what person are you? Like, what is it that's going on? But like that awakening and that those connections, I think is like huge, right? So it is about having that those like-minded, and those who are not in that circle with me, then it's like, then that's okay. Like you have your belief, that's okay. And one of the things that I always remind people is take what you need and leave the rest, because sometimes whatever it is that those downloads were are things that you need in that particular moment, and you may get some information that is useful to you right now, and then a year from now or 2 years from now you come back and you're like, oh, just a minute, right? This is kind of where I'm at. And I know that my experience over the years has been that, because I've worked through the different realms of spirituality to try and figure out what fits for me and what doesn't fit for me, and how it all kind of entangles. And so that's one of the things that I think is pretty amazing, is that we have these abilities of being able to accept others the way that and allow them to be able to have whatever beliefs that works for them, while we continue to be able to have whatever beliefs that work for us, to be able to work through those parts of us.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And there's something that you said really it resonated with me, because the work I do, I trained in expressive arts therapy. So I'm not a therapist, but it's therapeutic, the work that is done. So it's the same thing when we go into a process, whether it's involving visual art or drumming or whatever, vocals, any type of the arts, we go into a process. And you were talking about taking what you need at that moment, and then something else might come later on down the road. And that's what happens. You end up with this image of some sort, and sometimes it's very clear what is coming through for you, and then other times you're not really sure. You're like, what is this all about? But it can come, like you said, months, even years later, and you go, oh, that's what oh, now I get it. So it's always there, right? We're just accessing information that's already within us. It's just in our subconscious, so we're not aware of it. So we're just bringing it to the surface so we can observe it and be with it and heal what needs to be healed. And that's the work that I do.
Which is really important, because it's those little pieces of healing. And because I've worked in psychotherapy for a long time. And so one of the things that people would say is like, I've already dealt with this. Why am I dealing with this again? It's because it's that, and I always use the analogy of the onion. Oh, what's the
spiral? Because we always come back around. And this is something that I actually learned in my own process when I had to work with another expressive arts therapist, and I had to do the work as the client. And I remember, I don't know if I drew it, but I was afraid to go back. I said, I don't want to go back to that same spot. And she said, you're never going back to that same spot. It's a spiral. So you might go close to it, but you're never exactly right back where you were, because you're growing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. It definitely makes sense. And that's why, so like it's those different layers. So like it keeps going back. So, and it's just being able to peel off that next layer to be able to heal that next level, right? Yeah. So when we're healing something, something that still is a little bit raw, right? And then we go back to the next, then 2 or 3 years later, possibly even within the next year, you're then healing again another wound that it's like, oh, okay. So like now it's time
to like again, huh?
But it's not quite the same, like you said, because we're never going back to that same part, because we've already expressed, or we've already healed that one little piece.
If we do the work, which is why when you talked about Francine being here, and that's what I mean, is like she's showing up, and that is
Yeah.
What can you do if you don't show up?
Yeah. And not do the work, right? So, and that's one of the things that I always say whenever I'm working with anyone is, like, you have to, like, you're going to get back whatever it is that you put in. And so, like, the more that you put in, the more you're going to get back. And sometimes putting in is painful.
Yeah.
Sometimes it like stirs up a whole bunch of stuff that you're like, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah.
Right? You have to feel this.
I'm guessing that if you're the same as me, that as practitioners and as people who hold space for other people, we do the work every day. Yeah. Like, we know that it has to be done. We have to do it on ourselves as well.
And if we don't, then we become stagnant and we can't move forward. And being able to recognize, so I have a membership that I have. And so every Wednesday we actually connect, and like, there's no, like, even during holidays, whatever, like, we don't, we still manage to be able to stay connected. And I think this year, no, even for Christmas this year, I think Christmas fell on another day, but whatever it was, but like, we try and make sure that it stays consistent, that we always have that weekly session.
Wow.
But when you're talking about that healing, is that last week was a really bad week for me. There's like a lot of different things that were happening, and Wednesday was just the the peak, was just the icing on the cake, right? So it was like, okay, I need to cancel. And one of the things that's really amazing is that the women then, like, even though I'm the facilitator, we are still wrapped together and being able to hold space for each other, because I'm no better than they are. I'm simply holding that space.
Exactly.
Right? So we are all at our own different levels, and there's different things that we're dealing with that way. And which is why in my in-person conference, we always have our space is always held in a circle.
Oh.
And so we are always in a circle, because there's not one person who is more important in that space than the other. And so obviously when we have presenters, there's still somebody standing. Last year we had it so that PowerPoint presentations could be shared. So we would have the speaker kind of stand underneath the PowerPoint, but we were still in a circle that allowed us to be able to have that space. And even though virtually we're not in a circle, I still hold that container as a circle. So I still call in all of us into the circle, because we are all equal. And again, one person sharing their story, it doesn't mean that that one person is better. They have just had a different experience and has had an opportunity to be able to move through that particular process. So so it's just really important.
I do the same, the circle. And as a classroom teacher, my class always began our day in a circle, the kids.
Okay, beautiful. Because it's so sacred, right? So like, I know that, and like I said, I shared in terms of me learning my spirituality and figuring out where things were and that kind of thing. And so with my Aboriginal teachings, that's one of the things that, and I was already doing that. It was just something that I would always do. But then it became more significant when I had actually learned that was the teaching in terms of the spirituality, because I didn't grow up with my teachings, right? So I'm learning my teachings and being able to share the teachings that I do have. But it was like, when that happened, it was like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this all along. And like, there was like a real huge significance as to why that was happening. So
I can imagine. Wow.
Right. So it was like that drive where you actually said, like, it just kind of came down, right? It was like, you get those light bulbs, you get those ahas of like, oh, that's why I always feel that, or, oh, that's why I always sense that, right? So like, there's just these different things that are amazing. So it's beautiful. And so is there anything else, Michelle, that you wanted to share or that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, well, because I started talking about the name, the Monarch mentoring, and I feel like I just want to address the whole Monarch thing.
Okay.
Monarch, clearly it's a butterfly, and so that represents transformation. So the work is all about personal transformation or personal development. What does that mean? It just means you're changing and growing and getting better. And of course, there's the image of the caterpillar into the butterfly, right, and spreading their wings. But the significance of the monarch in particular is that type of butterfly, the journey that the monarch takes from Canada to and northern states, down south to Mexico, central Mexico, and it's the most significant butterfly journey that there is, and that is the journey that these women go on, right? That's or as us as women, this is the journey that we are on, and the very fact that there's some sort of internal compass that a monarch has that tells them where to go, even though they've never been there before.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love the metaphor of the monarch for this work, because they stand out as a butterfly because of that journey.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing. And also how it dropped in is because when this dream originally was planted inside of me, I had this vision of running retreats. Essentially, I didn't call them retreats at the time, but I said, I want to take people around the world and have nature inspire them and the arts inspire them and help them to heal and grow. And I didn't really know what it was at the time. I didn't know expressive arts existed at the time. And since then, though, I've traveled down to the sanctuaries in Mexico, the Monarch sanctuaries, and I found this gorgeous, not 5-star gorgeous resort. It's actually a family run. It's quite humble. The dwellings are humble, but their property is it's because it's all nature and they believe in sustainable living. So they have a little farm on their property and they try to make as much food as they possibly can to use in their restaurant and their cooking. And they have trails and waterfalls and they're really raw and authentic. Like it's not fancy.
Yeah.
It's very much down to earth, but paradise at the same time. And
I know exactly what you're talking about, like
okay,
that,
good.
right? Yeah. So I know exactly. I don't know where you're talking about, but and that's one of the things that I think is like the most powerful is when we're actually able to kind of do that connection of being able to kind of go within, right? So like it doesn't have to be this big fancy restaurant. It doesn't have to have all these big fancy foods. It's just that ability of being able to. And my annual fall retreat, that's one of the things that we do is we actually go somewhere where we are completely off the grid.
Right.
We've got a nice, quaint little cabin, and it's and that's where it is that we host it. And so, and again, it's that transformation. And what I loved is that when you started talking about that whole piece of transformation, the very first thing that I did was like, oh, my butterflies, right? So it's like, because this is my room, right? So we have a local artist who also works for us, but she comes in and she came in. I said, okay, so I want to be able to paint the doors. I want to be able to get some feeling on the doors. And so these are what these rooms, and I had already named all the rooms, but my room, I didn't name it. It was just the office. Right. So it was the office. And so, but all the other rooms I had actually named them. And so then when she was actually doing the paintings and whatever it was, and she had given me the sketches, I'm like, okay, so this is perfect for that room. This is perfect for this room. And this is perfect for this room. And then and then she had the one that was left over. And because I wasn't looking at getting my door painted, like that wasn't my initial plan, because it was like I'm like trying to like the rooms. Yeah. But this is where I do my coaching. Like, so my one-to-one coaching is in this room. This is where I have all the different things. And so so then when we were looking at it, it was like, I like these butterflies. So my door has butterflies painted on the door. And it was like, because this is where we actually do transformation. And it was like, this is so perfect that this is, again, that same conversation. So when you were talking about it, it's like, you know how when you get those goosebumps on the back of your neck or whatever, like and I'm like, my butterflies, we're talking about my room, right? So.
And that's you're almost making me cry, just you describing that and the serendipity and knowing that, we don't have to control everything. That was already taken care of for you. Right?
It was. Right. So like, what are the odds that like, this is your business and you're talking about like this whole journey and that whole transformation. And then it's like, this is like, oh, my door's got my butterflies, specifically because when I chose the butterflies, when I said, yes, I'd like to be able to have these ones on my door, because she had given me like 5 or 6 different sketches, so that it was giving me an idea of like, okay, so these are some of the ideas that she had. And it's like, yes, this one works for this one works for that one. And then it was like, but I really like these butterflies. And so let's paint my office door as well. And it was like, oh, okay, this is perfect.
Amazing.
And then we have another one that she had is at the end of our hall, because there's an apartment in the back of the building. And so at the end of our hall has the moon, and I'm well into the moon. So it's got like, I'm like connected to water. So she's got this goddess that is actually coming out of the water into the moon. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, we need this one. Like, I don't know where this one needs to go. And then I'm like, okay, at the end of the hall, like right at the end of the hall, like this is when we're going to be doing this one. So all of our doors are painted. And so it's beautiful. Like we have so she painted each one of the rooms, and each one of the rooms have its own significance as to what it is that's going on. And it's just that whole transformation, right? The other thing that you were saying earlier too is that you were talking about like when you're doing work with your clients and they're doing that expressive arts with chakra dance, is that at the end of a chakra dance, we do the mandala drawing, and it's like whatever it is that goes within. And I am not an artist. Like that is not my thing. That is not my area of expertise. Like that's just, I come up with other creative ways, but that's not my thing. But when we actually go into the mandala art, and I just simply, like, I make sure, because we are dimly lit, and other people will use their lights and whatever so that they can make sure that they can see the colors that they're drawing and what it is that they're drawing. But I really just go with intuition in terms of being able to draw whatever it is that needs to come out. So I'm not even paying attention to what colors come out. So then when we open it back up again and we turn on the lights, it's like you've got like all these different things that have like huge significance around color. And then the other part is that I've actually drawn faces, and I've actually legitimately drawn a face. But if you ask me to draw a face, I'm drawing you stickmen. Like that's just what's coming out is like stickmen. Because if I'm using my ego to be able to paint or to draw, then that's what you're getting from me. But when I'm using that intuitive self and I'm going within, it's like I've actually been able to draw faces, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And so, and then the other thing that made me think is that we have Diane, who is, and she's shared her journey on this, is that she's attended when I first started teaching chakra dance and we were doing the images, she had drawn this image that had 3 angels. She didn't really pay attention to what the significance was of it. And then she had taken it away and she had set it aside. And then I think that it was probably about 3 or 4 months later that we actually hosted our very first retreat. And when we had hosted our very first retreat, Diane had came on that journey with us, and we were doing, the entire retreat was all based around chakra dancing. And so so then that meant that we had different mandalas that we were drawing and different things that we were doing, different activities. And so then, but at one point, and during my retreats is during the ceremonial parts of things, we don't take pictures, like, because I want people to not worry about when they're meditating or when they're doing whatever, that we're taking a bunch of pictures. So like if it's just kind of random things, we'll take pictures, but like not anything that's based on that ceremonial part, because as we're doing things, emotions come up, and I don't want people to take pictures of people when they're in those vulnerable moments.
Yeah.
But then there was one particular time that, and again, it's those listening to those voices, right? So it's like, take out your camera, you need to take a picture. And I'm like, I don't need to take a picture. Like, I'm not supposed to. And like, I'm having this rational conversation with like this download. And it's like, I'm not supposed to be paying attention to this. And so then I was like, okay, so I'm just going to go get my camera and I'll tell them after. But there was two of the people that were there. They were both people that I knew. And I knew that they would be okay with the image of taking the photo, but I didn't know the significance or why I had taken the photo. So I took the photo, we continued with the whole activity, and then I forgot to tell them that I had taken the photo, because I took that one picture, put the camera back, because like that's not what it is that we were doing. But it was like, it was not, you're not ignoring this nudge. You need to take a picture. And so when we actually went back to do the actual photos that we were actually taking regular pictures, then I said, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you guys that I took this picture of you. And we went to go and look, and inside the camera was there was like this light and glowing lights that were actually coming on the image. And so like there was like different things, and one of them looked as though like you can actually see the outline of an angel with their hand on Diane's shoulder. And it was like, okay, so like this is kind of weird.
Wow.
And but it was like, okay, so this is what's going on. And then later on, when we went to go download the pictures and we went to pull it back up, because Diane's like, I really want that picture. The only thing that you can see on the actual image is just this line across her shoulder. You can't see the thing that we were actually able to see inside the camera.
Wow.
And I think I was actually just sharing it. And then later on, she had taken the image, that image, and there was a clairvoyant that she had, as she has a neighbor who's a clairvoyant, and the clairvoyant was able to see 3 angels that were surrounding her, the one that was actually touching her. Yep. And then there was another angel in the window that was apparently lying with her hands on the back. You can actually see the hue, like after the clairvoyant pointed it out, you can see like the little hue, but she said it was an angel that was lying on her back. And then over in the corner, there was another little angel that was there. And so who the angels were it was her sister, who she had put her on her hand. It was her mom, who was laying resting, because her mom had brought her sister and her infant child to her during that moment. Okay. And then it was probably a month or 2 later that she then went back through her different images from the chakra dancing, and she went back and she found the image of like months before, she had 3 angels that appeared to her during that dance. And it was like, oh my gosh, like this is so insane, because like we don't think of it, right? So like these things, like you said, like we've got that internal beacon that shares this information, and not everybody has this huge transformational experience like Diane did, but it's like that, but it does happen, right? So it's like that she had these different things, and there were different things that had happened throughout that weekend, where there was like some emotional releases and some different things that were happening and different messages that came forward. But then when you put all those 3 incidents together, it's like, oh my gosh, like take a look at this. Like this is pretty
incredible.
So
I feel like I could talk to you for another hour, because I have so many. Like first of all, the chakra dance, because dance is one of my main modalities, and I've created a course called Dance Your Soul Home. But chakra dance is actually something that has caught my attention in other years. Yeah. So another time, I want to talk to you about that, because it seems to me that you teach it.
I do, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk to you more about that. And the angels, they're always there. They're also one of the, like, I connect with angels.
Yeah.
And I had not a similar, not like that. Like that is an amazing story. But I do have a friend who does healing, energy healing. And I was lying on her bed, and I was really, really, really struggling at that time. And this was a few years ago. And she literally saw there was a circle of angels. They were surrounding me, holding hands and just like holding space for me, essentially, and giving me healing love. I can't see. I have always kind of wished that I could see their orbs, but I still have different ways of connecting and communicating. So it's also
great. And my mom can visually see, different things or different people or different things that are surrounding. I don't have that ability either, but I have the sensation, right? So like I have it's like, I know that something's there. I know that someone or that there's different things. Like I'll be having conversations, and then all of a sudden I'll have something or someone standing behind me, and I'm gonna have to look, and it's like, oh, okay, there's no one there, right? So like I know and again, it's all to do with different conversations, different things. And then it's like, oh, okay, this is tied to that, whatever it is that's going on. Yeah. And so on my right side, I always feel that there's always somebody that's there. And depending on what it is that's going on, is that I know that, and so I know that it's somebody, it's one of my guides, it's one of the people that are there to support me. And so one of the things that has happened several times is that, because there are some people that I have connected with that have that visual ability, and they don't know that I have this this being or this support that's actually beside me. And so like now I know. So if somebody says, okay, yeah, well, I'm seeing this being, And I know exactly who it is now, but when it first happened, the very first person that told me that, it's my great grandfather that comes and supports me during their entire time. But they've actually been able to visually see him in his entirety. So it's really amazing to be able to have that. So like I said, I know that that's who it is that supports me, right?
Got
So he's always there. And
He's
he's always there, and I know that he's there, but before it's like I had no idea who that person was, right? Or that thing was. And so I get to actually carry that with me all the time. So whenever it is that's going on, I know that I just have to look over my right shoulder, right? So like that's my own ability of being able to say, okay, I need you to come closer because I'm not feeling whatever it is that I need to, right? So it's, again, all those different abilities of being able to find those comforts, find those abilities of things. And like most of the people I know talk to people or things that are not there all the time, right? So they talk to God, they talk to
totally
whoever, right?
Yeah, it's true. And it's funny, I've been feeling talk about that nudge, right? And I don't know what, because I'm having that internal battle too. It's like mention this, and my rational mind is going, why would I? But I get they've been asking me to say something for almost this whole time we've been talking. I get a ringing sometimes it's in my right ear, and then sometimes it's in my left ear. And I'm like, what does the right mean? What does the left mean? I'm just so curious because I feel like one side means something. I don't know if it's a yes or a no, because it's when I'm thinking about something, I'll suddenly get a ringing in this ear, or I'll get a ringing in this ear. And I feel like one is a yes and one is a no, but I don't know if that's.
So one of the things that you might want to try is when it's happening is ask the question, is this a yes?
Right.
And then it'll ring, and if it doesn't and it rings on the other side, it'll tell you that it's a no.
Right.
Okay. Right. Because it's your intuitive self that's giving you those messages. So specifically, same as you would if you're actually using a pendulum, right? So is this a yes or a no? So I know that sometimes if I use my pendulum, I'll get one. It's kind of like, I'm not sure if that's a yes or a no, because it's kind of like it's like a really faint, like, so which direction is it moving? Like, is it really moving in which direction? And so then I will ask, and then it gets bigger, right? So it'll actually be, so it's like, is this a yes or a no? And that's the question that I will ask. And then it will actually be, so if it's a yes, it'll give me a bigger message to know that it's a yes. And if it's a no, then it gives me a bigger message that it's a no. So then it's like, oh, okay, now I know what it is that you're trying to tell me. But sometimes the messages are just very subtle and you don't necessarily know what it is. So same with ringing in your ears would be the same thing. It's like a subtle message. So ask it, is it a yes? And if it's a yes, then that same ear will ring. If it's a no, then the other ear will ring.
Okay.
So that might help you as well, so that you can, because it's like, okay, what am I supposed to do?
Exactly.
So it's really interesting how those energies work and how we get those little different messages, right? So again, no matter whether it's a religious belief or a spiritual belief, whatever it is that happens, is that there's these over like years and years and centuries, it's like we've been given messages, and we just need to sometimes listen to what those messages are, right? So it's just really interesting that that's one of the things that would happen. So we had pennies at the time when we were younger, and so we would find pennies, and my best friend's mom would say to us all the time, okay, well, Spirit's coming to give you a message, or an angel is coming to give you a message, or whatever. And it's like, okay, so it's whoever it is that you're thinking about at the time. When you find it, that's who it is that's coming forward to give you either support or a message. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And so then I would find pennies all over the place, and it would be different, and whoever it was that it would be. And you don't do it consciously, right? So it's like, oh, who was I thinking about? Oh, I was thinking about my grandmother. Oh, I was thinking about whoever, right? So then, but one of the things that she had said, and she had said this like years and years ago, is that, but when I pass, she's like, I'm not dropping pennies, I'm dropping dimes. And so then after she passed, then I started finding dimes. And there was like a lot of different instances where my girlfriend and I, where she actually had the experience of like the dimes and the different things like that. But it was like, okay, so like whenever I find a dime, and it could be someone else, like I don't know, but whenever I find a dime, the very first person that I think about is her. So it's like, oh, okay, Nan, so you're here, right? So
Amazing. Yeah,
yeah, so
beautiful.
it's just like I said, it's that, and when you start talking about it, it's like people are like, and I always think, okay, well, are people going to think that I'm crazy? Like the last 3 years or so, I guess I've come out of the spiritual closet, so I'm like,
Yes. Yes.
you
Yeah.
think I'm weird? I'm weird. I don't really care anymore. But like for a long time, I wouldn't share any of those things or wouldn't share any of those because like people are going to think that I'm crazy. So now if they think that I'm crazy, that's okay because I've got other people that are on my crazy train with me.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is if we don't share these things and if we stay quiet, then there might be other people out there who are experiencing the same things and thinking they're crazy.
Yeah.
But then when they hear somebody like us sit and they're like, oh, crazy? Same thing's happening over there. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, this has been a great conversation. We were supposed to be on for about 15 minutes. We're on 40 minutes now. So I do have another meeting that starts in 4 minutes, so I have to go. But we definitely need to connect because there's definitely some light bulbs that have come on since our conversation. So we definitely need to connect. So thanks again, everybody. Registration closes today. There is a registration link here in the portal. With the registration that is up, that is right now, is that if you register, you get a beautiful swag box. So like there's lots of really cool goodies. You get the replays of all of the presentations, as well as different exhibitors and providers are going to be providing you with some special discounts. And so this is great. So again, Michele, you and I definitely need to connect.
Mm-hmm.
And
thank you for all of your hard work. I just wanted to say that before we had to leave. With this, I know I'm not sure I can even imagine all the hard work you're doing. So thank you so much for.
Next year will be easier because I'll already have that part under the belt.
Right.
Beautiful. I have this. Oh, I forgot to figure out that one, and I have to add this one. But otherwise, but everything's coming along really smoothly. So we have an ability of being able to chat in a different format than I had thought that we were going to, as well, because we're going to have like a private chatting thing happening. And so, like, yay! I've got a different source and a different way of that happening. So that's actually perfect. So. Awesome. I've learned lots in the last few months.
I'm sure.
So Francine says, have a good day, ladies. And you too, Francine.
Thanks, Francine.
And looking forward to having you connect with us in 2 weeks. Like we are just a little over 2 weeks before we actually get going. So I will chat with all of you guys soon. And bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.